Hey guys, TJ here. In today's lesson, it's going to be the most impactful thing you've ever learned on guitar. Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about power triads. Today's lesson's about triads. Today's lesson's going to be the best thing you've ever learned. Today's lesson might be the most applicable lesson you've ever had. Getting better on guitar starts here. Let's get to it. Today's lesson is going to be so fundamental, so foundational, but it's also going to be incredibly important. It's when you're really going to feel like you are starting to play all over the neck. It's when you can jam with your buddies and add something different. It's also going to be, when you master this and when you really start to get all the notes under your belt here and all these chords under your belt, it's going to be when you could jam to your favorite song and feel like you're adding something even to that pre-recorded mix. It's going to be one of the best tricks to add depth to guitar recordings, and it's really the secret to playing along with other instruments in a certain way. And we're going to start by playing triads. I mean, go figure, it's another triad lesson. But this is going to focus on triads where the root notes appear on the second, third, or fourth string, and it starts to dig into the concept called inversions. And now that sounds really technical, it sounds very music theory. All it actually means is that the chord doesn't start with the root note. It means that the top note may not be the one. In fact, it isn't. The first inversion of the chord means that it starts with the third. The second inversion of the chord means that it starts with the fifth scale degree. So let's look at, I'm going to give you, it's basically going to be 6 chord shapes that if you move up and down the neck, create a ridiculous amount of capability to play different notes and different voicings up and down the neck. So let's use A. Let's go in the key of A, and we'll start with A major, and we'll go with A major, starting on with the root note first. So it's going to be the 7th fret on the 4th string, and then we're going to go 7, 6, 5 on strings 4, 3, 2. A major. Now let's go find the first inversion of that. And what that means with these 3 strings is that we're going to start on the 3rd of an A major scale. So right off the bat, that's going to be the shape, right? It's a C sharp. In this case, the root happens to be on bottom, the 5th, and then that 3rd. That's going to be the first inversion. Let's do the second inversion where the 5th is on top. And you know what? You actually already know this shape, you just don't realize it. When you bang out an A major, right? If you take away the open A note, the open A string, that's actually an inversion of the A major triad where the 5th is on top. 5, 1, 3. In this case. So we already have these 3 shapes. So concept number 1 was inversions, right? It was moving a chord around on the neck by finding where the root shifts and maybe the note or the chord starts with the 3rd of the scale, or maybe it starts with the 5th of the scale. Now what I want to do is show you that we can make these minor as well. We know where the 3rd is, and if we lower that by half a step, we can make a minor triad in that position. And the same way we already knew where that A major was, I bet you already know that A minor shape as well. By taking the 3rd and just lowering it a half step from A major to A minor. And if we take the other inversion here, which is the first inversion starting with the 3rd, if we know that we're starting with the 3rd, and we lower that a half a step, that's our minor chord. So now finding these to match chord progressions or to finding these around chord progressions is really easy, but it'll go to show you how you can move stuff around really easily. So let's just say we want to do an A, D, E chord progression. Right? Now that's really easy. And of course, this is the A. And if we use one of the inversions, we know that that's the D, and that's the E. You could also play that same thing. Kind of partial to that one. One tip I'll give you to really master this skill is to go and find some chord progressions that are in your favorite songs or make a couple up and try to find them in a bunch of different places around the neck with these triads and the inversions of these triads and chords. And you'll really get an idea of how you can start to play these chord positions, these chord progressions in one position, or you could find a bunch of different areas to play them. And I would suggest playing them along to your favorite song and starting to hear how you play something different in the mix, how you add to the mix. It's going to be a lot of fun as you work your way through it. That's a B minor, a G, and a D, right? So we can find that in a bunch of places. I didn't even have to move to get that. There's my B minor, just like my A minor, but up 2. And I know I have my G shape. I had my A, I bring that down to a G, and my D shape, right? So now B minor, G, D. And that's when you start to really pick some favorite songs. And I think in the last Triad lesson, I was messing around with the CCR tune. So what's that? D, A, G, D. A, G, D. That's cool. I mean, you get it. But this is just a really, really powerful lesson because honestly, this is when it starts to sound like you know what you're doing. This is when it starts to sound like you really know what you're talking about and you really know how to play on guitar. I would say spend the next week or so finding the major triads, finding the minor triads and their inversions, and then playing along with your favorite tunes, or making up some chord progressions and trying to find them in different places around the neck. I bet that you'll come across some voicings that really sound good to you, and that's when you're going to start to develop your own style. Because what sounds the best to you may sound different to somebody else, may sound different to somebody else, and you're going to start to sound like yourself when you're playing guitar. And that's what's really exciting about starting to know what you're doing on the instrument. I think this is super important. I think this is one of those things that really makes you stand out as a guitar player. It really brings you into that intermediate or intermediate advanced level, if there's such a thing. I mean, this is going to be something that sets you apart, but also You're really going to start to have fun now on guitar when you play these along to your favorite tunes and when you jam with your buddies and add something different to the sound and you start to sound like yourself. So here's a couple tracks I'm just going to work through, pre-produce them and throw them up here just to give you an idea of how simple and yet how effective learning these triads and inversions in these chord shapes can be. I'll see you in the next one.